obviously one of the most important questions when we're talking working with Angelic Reiki is what is an angel? And as I mentioned earlier, there has been a tremendous energy change, level of consciousness change, etc. Over, well, since the harmonic convergence, which is 1987, so it's kind of 25 years now, approximately, yes. And we've had different relationships with angels and different ways of perceiving them. So Angelic Reiki has always been about connecting to ancient wisdom, and that's why I said earlier that Angelic Reiki actually isn't part of the New Age, or the New Age spirituality, New Age movement, because its whole purpose is to connect back to the original wisdom, the ancient wisdom. And that's why its lineage, its lineage goes through the path back to Atlantis and Lemuria of Western civilization, and that is its lineage. So if we retrace that path, there is in the manual, the part at the back of the new 1 and 2 manual, an article that I wrote for one of the magazines in the UK, just asking the question, what are angels? And when I was considering reading that article and answering the question, what came to me was that one of the first examples of angelic energy, or the interpretation of angelic energy, was through one of the Egyptian gods or goddesses, which are called the Neteru. Now, one of the things that humans always do, so that they can understand the non-understandable, is that they use symbols. This is the whole point of symbols, and you can get a sense of something through its symbology beyond what you can intellectually describe. And wings, birds, wings, flight has always been throughout the American Indian tradition, many traditions, a symbol of higher knowing, of wisdom, of seeing a bigger picture, etc. And the Neteru, that has the largest wings, and she's often seen as a very slim female, sat with her knees bent, knees to the side, and her body straight forwards, very old, wings twice the length of her arms, and a single feather in her head is the goddess Mart. And actually, she's when you see a statue of her or a painting on a papyrus, sometimes people think it's Isis, and it isn't. You can always tell by what they have on their head who the god or goddess is. So here we have the goddess Mart, the archetype, the Neteru. You've actually got the oh no, it's all right. Yeah, sorry. The god or goddess, they are an archetype. They are a principle. If you notice, when I'm calling in the Ascended Masters at the beginning of the workshop, I don't call in Isis. Because they are all, my understanding is that they are archetypes. They are a principle beyond any one person. Okay? It's not an Ascended Master energy. And when I talk about archetypes, I'm talking about similar archetypes to what you might find in the tarot, where you have the priest, the priestess, the knight, etc. So they represent a principle, part of how manifestation works. So so here we have this goddess, this Neteru, with these immense wings. So we have this idea that these wings are about that spiritual knowing, that higher knowing, that air, the East wisdom. So that was what I was guided to actually get an early example of how angelic energy and the idea of wings became associated. Then if we kind of continue in history, we start to understand where we currently are in terms of our relationship with angels. Now, just to let you know that this book is the reference work that Kevin got much of his information from parts of the attunements. And this is it's called The Dictionary of Angels, and it's by Gustav Davidson. And it is a intellectual research document into all the into any reference, written reference he could find about angels, and that's how many angels there are.
Surely there's more than that.
Okay, that he could find a recorded reference to. But many of those, I'm sure, you will have never heard of. So how, what is the history? How have we ended up with the angels that we talk about? Whether it's through the Kabbalistic tradition and those that are named on the Tree of Life, or through the Islamic tradition or Christian tradition. And the first part of the story, the next part of the story that comes closer up to date is when the library of Alexandria was burnt. And that, of course, destroyed a lot of the information and documents from ancient times. Then there's actually two burnings, one pre-date of the birth of Christ and one after. So then we have the idea of higher knowing and angels, etc., being adopted by the Church of Rome. Then, in 300, I'm going to go slightly out on this, but it's about 365 AD, there is the Council of Nicaea. A council is held at Nicaea, which was in Asia Minor, what's known as Asia Minor at that time. And at that time, there were, all of the documents that didn't fit with the doctrine of the Church of Rome were destroyed. So we have another great loss of information. Then in 700, and again this is a very approximate date, I think it's 783 AD, there was the council in Rome held a meeting, held a synod, guided by Saint Zachariah, who was Pope at that time, and they were concerned at the number of angels that were being worshipped. And this kind of felt a bit like many gods, instead of worshipping just the one God, because that was the principle of the Church of Rome. So you kind of was feeling a little bit awkward that the people were worshipping, were calling in the energy of lots and lots of angels. So at that meeting, that synod meeting, it was decided that the church would only embrace the worship of three angels: Raphael, Michael, Gabriel. So that's why they're the ones we know. And one of the reasons why those are the ones we know, those are the most popular ones. Why? Because in 700 AD the rest were banned. So that is what was passed down in history. And as with everything, we are the result, or it feels to be, that we're the result of the history. We're not at the truth. We're at the end point of a long, long story. And now is the time to get back, to go back to the beginning, to go back to the ancient wisdom. Then, of course, in the Golden Age, European Golden Age, the Renaissance, there was the Renaissance painters, Michelangelo, Raphael, etc., who were commissioned to paint the great churches of Europe, especially in Italy and Rome. And part of the decoration was angels, and they chose, and it had been represented like this before, they chose to represent angels as masculine, and even the cherubs, the babies, their props, not male or female, but they were predominantly portrayed as masculine, physical human forms with wings. And that is the story of how we get this representation of angels, which we find in books and on cards and, you know, very much like that. Now, that's the kind of picture that we're used to, which is beautiful, and it does hold an energy, and, you know, and that is fine. But if we go back to the beginning, well, the place where I started in this story, and we ask, okay, so what was Mart? What was the archetype that she was holding? So if we ask, what was the wisdom? The ancient Egyptians had this goddess with enormous wings and a single feather, and they called her Mart. But what, it's like reading a tarot card. You pick a tarot card, it's the tower, it's the fool, it's the whatever, it's the universe, and then you look, you either know or you look in a book, and you get the information behind that card, behind that imagery. And if we do that with Mart, what is Mart all about? Mart is about cosmic law. The law of the cosmos. Now, as I said earlier, we're not talking about rules, I'm talking about laws like gravity is a law. This is how it works. So Mart is how the universe works. And that is the law of creation. The blueprint. The architect's drawings. And so if we were to ask, okay, how did creation happen? What are the rules of creation? How did creator intelligence, whatever name we might give that, actually do it? And there are certain laws in this universe. And the primary law is actually sphere. Everything, and within sphere I include obviously a ball, a spherical shape, a circle, a cycle, spiral. All of this is spherical energy, and the primary thing that everything is based on is the circle, is the cycle. Whether it's the cycle of life, whether it's the in-breath and out-breath that you're doing now, whether it's the cycle of a day, whether it's the cycle of a universe, a planet, the sun, our Earth going round the sun. Everything is based. The first law of this universe is the sphere, and then you've got two spheres together, and the motion and the energy that's created as two moves together. And then there's the third, and that is the seed of creation. And all of the laws that are birthed from that are the angels. And as I said earlier in the class, so the last workshop, there's a lovely Irish woman, and she said, it's funny, she said, oh, I'm trying to do an Irish accent. No. Yeah. She said, it's really funny. My son has always called angels angles, and he was dead right. Okay? Now, if we, what is an angle? The angle is what describes a a relationship. A relationship is what creates something. It depends, and it is the angle that determines that relationship. This is very well described in, and it's the basis of astrology. It depends on the angle of where you're, or the house in the cycle, in the circle, and it depends on whether this is trined or squared or an acute angle. And something you could actually try doing is when you go for a meal this evening, ideally we'd all be sat at a round table and feel your relationship with the person at different angles. How do you feel? Do you feel the same towards the person? Not the personality, but do you feel the same relationship with the person that sat next to you, as opposed to the person sat straight opposite you? And you'll feel a difference in how you relate to that person. And you might notice that you'll actually be more direct in your conversation with the person opposite, and a little more intimate in conversation with the person next to you, whether you know them or not. And that is simply the angle that is determining the qualitative result of the energy.
So the one facing is better? I mean, a better angle?
There is no better or worse. It's just a different quality.
Because of the angle?
Well, this is an experiential thing, and it's known through experience, just to feel how it is for you if next time you're sat with a large group of people, ideally at a round table, but that doesn't always happen, and just feel how you relate to people just because of where they're sat.
Okay, and by experience, the one you sit facing, usually you have a better connection with.
No,
than
I'm not
the
saying it's better. I use the word direct. As a quality.
Quality could be better.
It might be better. It might be worse. It's just a different quality.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I still don't understand. I'm sorry. The sphere and the angels' relationship. When you said
I'm saying that the sphere is an angel.
Okay.
When we go, as Mart represents, when we go from you see, Mart and all the angels that might have been portrayed in Rome, etc., and we see this image of, as I say, usually a male human shape with wings, and we look at that, and then we ask the question, but what is this representing? Because this image is simply a representation of a quality, of an archetype. Okay, so I'm going to just tell you what's here, and then we'll actually pass it round. So all of the language comes from these sacred shapes that are generated between circular movement and love. And when we use the sacred geometry, the angles, the angels, to actually represent that, then it actually draws the shape. Now, the letters that are used in the West, the English letters predominantly that are used, are derivations from that. All language is a derivation from that. And so if we talk about the Archangel Michael, we start with M. Okay, start with M. And each letter was generated. Remember, each letter is generated through creation and love. That's how the first shape is created. And every time that a shape is created, it has an essence, a meaning, a quality that's associated with it. So we have Michael, we have M for Michael, and that is men, and its numerical value is 40. Its symbol is water, and the meaning is to form, or to be of, or since. Now this is very, please forgive me, it is actually very simplistic. This is a very deep learning, and the access to the deepest understanding of this is through studying the Kabbalah. Perhaps also ancient, the hieroglyphs. I is the value of 7. Its energy is sword energy, so that's where Michael gets his sword from. That's just the I. And it's to cut into 2. The CH sound, or chess, is value of 8, and its symbol is actually a fence. And the energy is enigma. A and E together is Alf, and value is 1, and its symbol is an ox. And it's the creative power of nature. You know, I mean, an ox is about the, you know, if you want anything to pull a plough, you get an ox. But then all of that needs to be brought into balance. So you have the L, the L sound, and that's the ox goad, or the ox whip, or a whip, and that's, yes, I've said that is the energy that actually brings all of the story, all of the formula into balance. And that's why most angelic names that we know end in EL. The power to create in balance. So what we actually have is not a name, but a whole series of information, and it's like a sound formula that invokes a whole creation of an archetype. Okay?
Complicated.
All very simple. So do you want to... So what we have is, if we talk about the Archangel Michael, Archangel Michael is actually on the feminine pillar of the Tree of Life, Kabbalistic Tree of Life, actually part of the feminine energy, not masculine. So we've got this nurturing, we've got this creative, but it's also very discerning. Funnily enough, it's not kind of all fluffy and gentle. It's very dynamic. The essence, what you have in Archangel Michael, and sometimes pictures are very descriptive. They are very, they do really capture the essence. So I can cover a little bit of information about what we actually have on the table here as well. So this picture of the Archangel Michael has the sword energy, and it has the cup. So obviously to cut something into, to cut away karma, to get rid of everything that we don't want, is metal energy. And in Chinese philosophy, looking their interpretation of the elements, they don't have north, south, east and west. The season actually has 5 and then ether in the centre. And metal is autumn energy. It's the cutting, it's the letting go. You've had the spring and the growth and summer and all the fruit, and then you go into winter, you go into the subconscious, you go into water, and it's metal energy that cuts all that away. Then it's the water, it's the cup, it's the balm, it's love that helps the new growth. So that, it is that archetype, it is that story of the cutting of all that isn't needed, and then nurturing through love the new growth, the completion of a cycle and the birth of a new cycle. That essence is Mi Kai Il. It's that sound formula. It's not a person, it's not a guy, it's a fundamental principle of how the world is, of how creation is. And there are ancient sigils or symbols, And this is Kevin and I's interpretation of one, bringing in the fire quality that is also associated with Archangel Michael. Because to burn again is to get rid of the dross, the phoenix energy, same kind of principle. So it's one can actually contact a archetype more purely through symbology, pure symbology, rather than interpretation through human form.